Hey everyone, today we're going to look at how to do loop slicing in Reason 13. This also works in Reason 12 as well. Now it's something that I wish was a little bit easier to do, and maybe in the future we'll get a purpose-built device for this, but it can be done using the tools that we have now. Not many people know how to do this from what I've seen, so let's jump straight into it and I'll show you how it's done. So first of all, we're going to set up Kong, as that's the device that we're going to be using to do this in. And I'll go onto the first pad, open up the programmer, and we're going to choose the Nurse Rex loop player. Next, I'm going to hit the quick edit mode for drum assignment. And each of these pads is basically assigned from 1 to 16, but you can actually have any pad reference another pad. So we're going to change all of these to reference pad number 1. Now the next step is to go into quick edit for hit type. And this is going to look different depending on which module you have loaded, but as we have the Nurse Rex, we have these choices here of loop, chunk, slice, and stop. And what we want to do is set all of these to hit type 2, which is chunk trig. Now that is actually all of the setup work that you need to do for this. One final thing that I'll do is I'm going to duplicate the Kong, and on the copy we'll go back into quick edit for drum assignment, and this time we're just going to change the last 8 pads to a different number. And the reason I'm going to do this is basically if you want to be able to chop something by either 8 or 16, you're going to have these 2 patches ready to go, and I'm also going to include links to download them in the video description as well, so you can use these without doing any manual setup, but if you want to make these yourself, obviously you can do. Now I'm going to go ahead and assume that you're using a pre-cut loop, so this is something that's trimmed so that it loops properly. If you don't, I'm also going to show you a way that you can do that quickly and easily using one of Reason 13's new edit mode features, but for now we're going to go ahead and use a pre-cut loop. Now the first thing we need to do is make sure that this is kind of stretched to the right number of bars, and to do that you can hold Option or Alternate on PC and just drag this out, and it's going to snap to whatever your snap value is set to at the top there, which in this case is bar. Now that's done, I'm going to double click on the audio clip and we'll just bring this edit area up a little bit. And if I go into slice edit, you'll see that all of the transients have already been mapped out. And in this view, we can right click and choose bounce clip to Rex loop. And you'll see that this has appeared in the song samples folder. So anything that's self-contained within the project is going to appear in this song samples area. Now, if I go back to my rack, I can drag this loop onto either my 16 or my 8 slice Kong. So now what's going to happen is that rather than each of your keys playing a different slice of the Rex file, it's actually going to divide it up into 16 equal parts. And then likewise, if that was a shorter length loop, you could just drag it into the 8 slice version of Kong. And then the really cool thing that you could do from there, so I'm going to go ahead and just mute that original, we'll do Shift Tab to close out the edit area, is if I draw in a new MIDI part and we've got our slices down here, I can go ahead and just draw these in chromatically on every quarter note. We'll just go ahead and do a little bit of a volume boost on that as well. Now, the really cool thing is that if I was to duplicate that, right click on the clip, and then go down to Note Tools and Alter Notes, I can set an amount of randomization, and it's not just going to pick random notes, it's going to use the notes that are already there. So if we set that to something like 75% and alter, that's then going to auto-generate variations on the loop. So that's a really quick and easy way of generating variations on your loop. So this works fine for pre-cut audio, but if you have a longer file, with say like a drum break or something in it, and you want to use that instead, there's a really easy way that you can isolate a nice clean loop from that using one of Reason's new features. So in this instance, I've actually recorded this off of YouTube, and it's got a nice drum break in it. And I'll want to get my start and end points of that exactly on so I can then chuck them into the loop slicer. So we'll do the same thing again. I'm going to double click on the clip. But this time, instead of going into Slice Edit, we're going to use this new overview mode. And if you look at the top here, you'll notice that the transients are all mapped out the same as if we were in Slice. And the cool thing about that is that if you then press R to switch to the razor tool, you can automatically create cuts based on the transient. So if we find where the first hit is that we want the start of the loop to be on, and then we'll cut again at the end, and then we can just go ahead and delete this bit at the end and this bit at the start, move it all the way back to the start of the song, and then the same as we did before, I'm going to use Option or Alternate to drag it out to the right length, the right number of bars. Okay, so we've got a nice clean loop there. And then same as we did before, I'm going to go to Slice Edit, right click, bounce to Rex Loop. And then as I did before, I can just drag this onto my first Kong pad and it should be auto sliced. And there you go, that loop is now sliced evenly across 16 slices. As I say, if you want to use 8 slices, you can just use the other variation on the patch. And then of course you can go into the programmer for the pad and you can do things like mess around with the ADSR envelope of each chunk, as well as repitch it as well. And because it's a Rex loop, this is also going to conform to your tempo changes as well. So we could go all the way back up to that sort of like breakbeat speed. And that is how you could do loop slicing by equal divisions in Reason 13. As I say, I'd like there to be a bit of a simpler way to do this, but I am going to include the presets for both the 8 and 16 slice Kong patches in the video description, so you can download that. Start using it straight away. And then, as I say, the only manual thing that you have to do is go in, bounce to the Rex loop, or if you're extracting from a longer audio file, just use that new overview mode and the razor tool to get yourself a nice clean loop. And then you can drag it in to either of those patches. So I hope this has been useful. I plan to do a longer video as a kind of counterpoint to my last sort of opinion and critique video on Reason 13, which thank you very much for everyone that sort of checked that out and commented and everything. But to sort of balance that out, you know, there's a lot of things that I want to cover that's applicable to both Reason 12 and 13. Just reasons as to why I have actually been using it pretty much exclusively for the last few years. As much as I am sort of making that transition over to another DAW, Reason is very much still at the sort of center of my production workflow. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But for now, thanks for watching and I'll catch you on the next video.